All right, so I have a story. Bonnie works in ceramics, and so they put everything in a kiln, right? And so it gets super, super hot, like thousands of degrees. Normally, it's pretty clear when they're unloading a kiln, but for whatever reason, she looked over and there was like a brick in her way. So she reached over, picked up the brick, realized it was 2,000 degrees, realized that it needed to go, and in that moment, you're like, and then you're just, she's fine. She's fine. Everything's fine. So,
And then she just...
she burst into, all of a sudden, Pink Floyd album cover.
I'm just picturing her eyes just blink, blink as a smoke as she's holding this brick.
Part 4. Burns and Hypothermia.
All right, Daniel, Jenna, thanks for joining us today. We got some EMTs here.
Hi, good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you.
You guys are going to be talking about sick burns.
Yep.
The whole first, second, and third degree burns I had to learn about when I wrote my book, The Professional's Guide to Fire Eating. But you were saying that you don't use that classification anymore? You don't say sick burn, super sick burn, and your mama?
Right. A first degree burn is now called a superficial burn.
Okay.
A second degree burn is a partial thickness burn, and third degree is now a full thickness burn.
Okay, so superficial, partial thickness, and full thickness.
Yes.
Now, are the distinctions between those in first, second, and third still pretty much the same?
Yeah.
So only the labels. The labels
right.
are just more descriptive now,
Right.
So a superficial burn, if I remember correctly, is largely thought of as like a sunburn. Here, in fact, we simulated one over here, like this, right? So you're out for too long, and this can happen from flames, the same way it does from the sun, right?
Yep.
So it doesn't go too deep, it doesn't do like nerve damage or do any long-term tissue damage. What separates this one from, say, a second degree burn? Where I've spilled ice cream on myself.
It does look like that.
A little bit. Partial thickness, it blisters and can ooze pus or blood, usually clear pus.
Okay, so you can get scars from this, but you're not getting any like lasting like nerve damage or something like that.
I like the distinction, the clarification with the names, because superficial does imply that it's only the outermost layer of skin that's being damaged, and that everything's going to be just fine. You're not going to have any scars or anything. Partial thickness, it does imply that it gets from the epidermis down to the dermis, and that you're going to have a little bit of damage, possibly some scarring. The real stuff is when like you're cooking your flesh, right?
Right.
Which is what was the
full thickness.
full thickness.
Bam!
That's definitely just black smudge on your body.
Well, I had this for industrial night at Elysium. I was gonna get all gossed up and go, but
So it'll char first, and then it'll get almost like a yellowish tint because it will burn through the epidermis, the dermis, and then you'll get into the fat, and
muscle
the
tissue.
muscle and the bone.
Can we talk about spontaneous human combustion? Because like this thought that bodies would just randomly explode or whatever, like they found dead people, it's back in the 70s, 60s or whatever, they would find like just a leg gone and just a charred stump there, and they couldn't figure out, like, I guess it's something called spontaneous human combustion. Later on, research figured out that with the cotton blankets people had on them, they were smoking, they would fall asleep, the smoke would burn into their body, the fat of their leg would wick into the cotton, and basically the whole thing became a slow roasting candle that would consume their flesh.
that's nightmarish.
You're welcome.
I love it.
Don't smoke, kids.
Please don't smoke.
How do we treat each of these? When you come onto the scene, the first thing you do is, I guess, just assess what type of burn you're dealing with?
Yep.
Do you touch burn victims and figure out like, hey, can you feel this? Or
Like
No.
when you're doing meat and you're like, okay.
yeah, exactly.
How done?
Yeah, like,
How done is it?
You, my friend, are well done.
So you come across someone with a first degree burn like Brian's that needs treatment.
A
What-
little baby.
Yeah.
Oh, I was eating some fire.
Do you
and all of a
just,
sudden
like-
I burned my arm.
Do you just like give him a little kiss on his arm and hand him a sucker and then send him on his way?
Well, officially, we treat all patients the same and
Yes,
all injuries
yes.
with the same amount of respect and caution.
So what do you do when you see someone that just has a first degree burn?
It depends where the burn is, and it depends on how much of the body is burned. Usually, first degree burn will heal on its own We don't really do much. You're welcome to put aloe on. That is not EMT advice. We don't carry aloe in the truck.
Just let the healing take care of itself in a first-degree burn. You want to be comfortable. Maybe put
Right.
like a cool rag on it or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But then you get this. You get some blistering, you get a little bit of nerve damage maybe, get some bubbly, nasty flesh. What do you
Yeah.
do when you see a secondary burn?
So honestly,
Put a Band-Aid on it! And you put a Band-Aid on it!
you can put a dry sterile dressing on it. and-
Dry sterile dressing, so you wouldn't
Yes.
put like Neosporin or anything like
Right.
that, like
No.
antibiotic cream or anything.
Really? Is this as a preventative to keep it from getting contaminated with bacteria or whatever?
Yeah.
Or basically you just don't want it to get infected?
Right.
But again, back to the body just has to do its body thing.
Right.
Man, that's the disturbing part is like you read some stories. The guy who wrote the book, Predictably Irrational, had such severe burning on one of his arms that at one point he was flat out given the choice like, hey, we think you'll have a better quality of life if we just chop that off.
Oh God.
And he said no, and so instead
Yeah.
he spent years and years and years stretching his skin and doing physical therapy.
That's
and
impressive.
now as an adult, a behavioral economist, he actually says, yeah, I don't know. I think I probably would have been better off just chopping that arm off.
Oh God.
Like it's pretty wild. It's amazing.
That's insane.
Okay, so you don't like have like an axe on you where you're like, you see
No,
someone with
no, no,
second degree
no.
burns and you're like, gotta go.
Wait, but you just don't know until it takes years and years to figure all that stuff out.
We don't do field amputation. That's for like the go team or the trauma team that can fly out.
Do you ever contract with any like freelance amputation specialists or anything like that?
I
No.
did not know that was a thing.
Yeah, we'll talk afterwards.
My God.
Yeah, I don't want to brag, but
Does anything change when you get to again? What did you call it? Full contact burn.
Full thickness.
Full thickness.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know about this whole giving up the 1, 2, 3. Like,
don't like
I
it?
can remember 1, 2, 3.
It's more the medical field that has changed that. Your average person can still say, first, second, or third degree burns, and we'll know what you're talking about.
Okay. This is the kind of thing you're gonna see like in the middle of like an automobile fire or something where somebody's trapped and it's actually burned through their
Right.
flesh.
Or a house fire.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. A full thickness, we might actually test to see if you have a pulse, if you can move, if you can feel, because of possible nerve damage. With burns that are more serious, you definitely have to loosen clothing. If there's any constricting articles like jewelry, you need to take that off because there can be swelling, and you don't want to, lose a finger because your ring stayed on there.
Oh, that's a thing that can happen. I hadn't considered that.
Swelling.
Oh my God. This is one of those moments where it's like, the victim is thinking like, oh, I hope I'm okay. And you're thinking like, well, let's save that finger. Let's save that
Yeah.
wrist. Let's just,
Yeah.
oh my God. That's horrific. Okay, so remove the jewelry. And what, do you just wrap it up or?
It depends on where it all you're burned as well, because if you get full thickness burns over a large percentage of your body, you're actually
Especially your
dehydrating.
chest,
Look,
yeah.
if you get it around your chest, you can actually get it to where the skin is too tight for your chest to expand.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Can suffocate.
So you have to go to the hospital, and they'll actually make cuts.
so that you can
So
breathe.
that you can
So
breathe.
they will lacerate your burned skin so that your
Absolutely.
chest can expand.
Oh
yeah,
my God.
Getting a burn, especially a severe one, is nasty recovery.
Yeah, I saw Darkman and the exchange. It didn't. I don't think it's even.
At what point do you call 911 for a burn? Like, how do you know the difference between, because we talked about like my wife picking up a brick and her fingers burning because she didn't realize it was 2,000 degrees. Like, at what point do you know that you got to go visit somebody?
Third degree, definitely. If it's a huge portion of your body,
If you see anything
definitely.
charred or
Right.
blackened, then
Right.
go see a medical professional immediately.
If you start to lose sensation or you start to
Yes.
get cold, because full thickness burns actually burns off a lot of that protective layer, and you can actually get hypothermic, and you even get dehydrated.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what about the nasty second degree / partial thickness burns?
Honestly, that's personal preference. If you
Yeah.
feel like you're starting to, again, lose sensation or anything like that, if you're worried, you might want to call for medical.
But like this business is just
Yeah.
baby stuff. Just
Yeah.
rub some aloe on it. Don't bother
Yeah.
the EMTs.
Or as a fair person, I love solar cane.
But it's not necessary for recovery or anything like that. That's just your personal
That's
comfort.
comfort.
Yeah.
It all turns down to like either your body will fix it or not. You mentioned hypothermia. Is that now? Obviously, I don't expect most of us to have massive burns over our body to cause hypothermia. But tell me if this is true. I heard once that you could get hypothermia in water as warm as like 80 degrees. Like just if you spend enough time in water lower than your body temperature, at some point your core gets cold enough and it becomes a problem. Is that a real thing?
Absolutely.
Really?
So you can sit around in like 80 degree water, the human body's 98 degrees, and so it's only a mere 18 degrees lower, and you could still suffer from hypothermia from that?
When your core temperature becomes 95 degrees or lower, it is considered hypothermic.
What do you do when you encounter someone who is hypothermic?
You slowly warm them. You passively
give 'em a
warm them.
hug?
If they have wet clothes on, immediately take them off.
I assume the
'Cause
wet
that will
clothing
keep them
thing
cold.
is you're still getting a bunch of evaporation, so they're continuing to lose temperature. And I guess this would also apply to heat stroke, where one of the things that I dialed in on when I read up on this stuff was remember that your body is just a soup of liquids constantly moving around.
I'm picturing just a sock full of vegetable soup.
That's your body. There's a gizmo somebody made that was like a cuff that you put your arm into when you get somebody out that's hypothermic, and it's like, I don't know, 140 degrees or whatever, but warm enough that as the blood comes in, it gets warmed up and then it spreads to the rest of the body, and that made a huge difference. Or likewise on heat stroke, they say you know put a cold compress on by your carotid artery because your soup liquids are running through your whole body, taking the cool down stuff. Is there anything to that, or am I misremembering stuff?
So hypothermia, if you have heat packs or like a heated blanket or something like that, that would be considered warming passively. If you have heat packs, even if it's just those little hand warmers, you would put them in
Where
the
the
neck.
blood is, where the body soup lives.
Right.
Where the body
But
soup
you
lives.
can also put them in your armpits
Yeah.
and the groin, because those are where your major arteries are.
Those are the parts you want to save.
My pits and my bits.
My pits and my bits.
Gotta save the pits and the bits.
Doctor, I just need you to save my pits and my bits. Does that apply both for heat stroke and hypothermia, or are there different
Yes.
words?
There are 3 stages on the way to heat stroke. So there's the heat cramps. As long as they're not nauseous, you try and give them water, and they need to sip it. They need to not chug it.
Where do the heat cramps attack? Like, I think of them as like enemies. We're the heat cramps. We're coming to get you.
So they can attack anywhere.
At any time. You're never safe.
Like if you're out mowing the lawn and you're out and you have a big place
Heat cramp could be hiding behind a holly bush.
because you're in one position the whole time and you're out and it's really hot and you're not drinking any water. That's a big part of it.
Dehydration is a big part of it.
Is what
And
causes
this
the
is
heat
all
cramp.
stage 1 of being hyperthermic, right?
Right,
Hyper is
hyper.
too much, hypo is too low. So
Yes.
hyperthermic versus hypothermic.
Yes. And the second stage is heat exhaustion, where you're going to be a whole lot sweatier. You can start to get confused. You can be
That's
nauseous.
usually when I start sweating, I just get confused and nauseous. Like,
Oh, I just realized you're teeing me up because at stage 3, like you stop sweating, right?
Yes.
Is that a real
Yes.
thing?
is that
That
stage
is a
3?
real
Yeah,
Okay. I
yeah.
heard about that in an X-Men comic, which is where I learned most of the things that carry me through life.
No, that is
But
real.
it's totally true. You just
That is
stop
real.
sweating?
Yeah.
Well, and likewise with hypothermia, I believe there's a point at which you think you're terribly hot and
yeah.
you'll start taking off your clothes,
Yeah, you
right?
think you're warm because your body has basically given up.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
I read about the Russians that disappeared at Dyatlov Pass decades ago. They found them completely disrobed out in the Russian
Yep.
mountains amid
Yep.
snow and everything because they think hypothermia, freaked out, took all of their clothes off, and died out there.
Holy cow.
So if someone stops shivering and it's really cold out and they get sleepy, you need to warm them up as soon as possible. And one of the quickest ways to warm them up is your body heat.
Yeah, so get your body on their body. Maximize
Yeah,
that surface
and-
area too.
Get naked.
That's actually a
Honestly,
great technique.
Get naked.
Oh, so both people to get naked and getting.
Wait,
Can you
oh,
see
yeah.
that? In
Hold on,
movies
hold
and
on.
stuff?
You're
I
not
didn't
even
think that was
joking. This is a
real.
real
No,
thing?
I'm not
Oh, that's
joking.
wonderful.
We're not going to do that in the emergency
Right.
medicine.
I noticed.
They
I'm like,
if both of you get naked and crawl into like a sleeping bag or something
Yeah.
like that, and they
Yeah.
just absorb more of your heat. That's
Yeah.
okay. I thought that was some sort of myth or
No, that's
something that
real.
creepy people used to get other
all right,
people
now,
naked.
now that we've opened this can of worms, what about peeing on a jellyfish sting? Is that a thing?
I mean, that's not something
Are we
we
just-
do.
are we
you
just-
encounter a
show up
jellyfish in the
like,
wild.
First, second, and third degree, those terms are out. Now it's superficial, partial
Thickness.
full
Full
thickness
thickness.
burns. Pretty much with burns, there's not much you can do outside of make somebody comfortable and protect them from getting an infection, right? So on this stuff, you're not going to worry about it. Maybe put some aloe, solar cane. For this googly-eyed one, you're going to, just protect it from infection.
Yeah. You can put aloe or solar cane. I would stick to the aloe though, because that's a little bit more moisturizing, whereas solar cane has alcohol in it.
And then finally, with the chard, the full thickness burn.
Call 911 because there's a good chance that you're gonna get dehydrated because the moisture will just evaporate right out of that.
Meanwhile, on hyperthermia and hypothermia, I would say starting at the extremes, be very worried when all of a sudden it becomes opposite day.
Yes.
When all of a sudden people are taking off their clothes because they're hot when it's cold, or not sweating when it's
Yeah.
super hot.
Yep.
That's when you get super scared. Remember that the body is a vegetable soup in a sock.
Yeah.
And make sure
Yep.
to apply either warmth or cold to the parts that circulate and maximize surface area. We're EMTs now.
I think so.
We did it. We
I
did
think
it.
so,
Thank
pretty
you.
much.
Thank you.
We're good.
Congratulations.
Yep.
Congratulations
Thanks.
to us.
Thank you.
We
Yeah.
did great.
We're gonna
That's a congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations to you. Thank you.
As always, your phone number is 911.
Yes.
Call it anytime. Just if you want to chat, it's great.
No.
No.
Please do not.
I love it.
No.
Not even as a joke,
Don't.
Ryan. If you want to learn more about how to protect yourself in any kind of emergency situation, talk to your local fire department or your EMTs. Are they really that friendly? Are they cool?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you can just show up, you're like, hi, I want to learn more about being safe. And I guess they're all like, psh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I guess there's no fires right now, so.
They're gonna be like,
Yeah.
modern road? Yeah, get out.
Outside of that, thank you.
Yeah.
That was a bad ending. Thank you.
That's how we end them all now. Thank you. Seeing this drippy white goo though,
Yeah.
reminds me of my idea that is brilliant.
Go. Best part of the last 10 seconds was Bryce's attempt to control himself.
Really? Maybe the worst way I've kicked off a conversation.